Rankings risers and fallers. We had some injuries come out over the past weekend, and those guys have fallen in the rankings. Hey, we've also had some good news, though, come out, and those guys have gone up a little bit here. So here is a rankings update. As always, be sure to head over to the community tab right here on the YouTube channel. You will always be able to find my rankings right there. We're going to update those as the preseason continues, and then my goal is to do weekly rankings throughout the season, help you guys out with start-sit decisions, but we'll get there when we get there. And my first riser here, and this is one that maybe I was a little bit slow to getting around to, and maybe I should have changed this earlier. It's Chase Brown. I really feel like this is a guy who is going to be one of the hype darlings of the preseason. Think back to Dameon Pierce a couple years ago, and Chase Brown sort of feels like he's heading in that same direction a little bit here. Zach Moss apparently has played with like the third string at times during the training camp. He has not been everything they hoped and dreamed he would be when they made that move to get him in the offseason. They shipped away Joe Mixon. Chase Brown's running with the ones. You hear the offensive linemen saying, hey, I would draft him in my fantasy team. So if these guys are taking him, then we should be too. I moved him all the way up to running back 27, just behind Jalen Warren and DeAndre Swift, ahead of James Conner and Tyjae Spears. It's a really kind of messy tier there that you're looking at right now. Marshawn Lloyd also in that tier for me. And it's guys who are going to be splitting in the backfield, guys who on the younger end of things are guys who maybe have the opportunity to overcome what's in front of them, and a guy in James Conner who might go into the season as a starter but potentially could lose that job. Out of that group, I actually think there's a chance that Chase Brown has the most upside of this entire group. He profiles as a pass catcher, but you know in Cincinnati there's going to be a lot of goal line opportunities too. It's going to be a question whether he can keep Zach Moss off the field in those, but he could really have some high upside for your team. Our first faller, unfortunately, is Justin Herbert. He suffered a plantar fascia injury last week, and those are injuries that scare me a lot. Plantar fasciitis is a terrifying injury for these quarterbacks, for any players. Gosh, I used to play fantasy basketball, and that was just like a kiss of death for those guys. Because it's one of those injuries you try to play through, but you're never quite 100%. You're never quite good to go. It's not one that's ever going to really shut you down, but it's just a painful, tough, limiting injury. And so for Justin Herbert, there was already a lot of reasons to be concerned. New head coach, new offense coordinator, no weapons. All that's not good already for him. I think one thing that some of us had a little bit of hope for with Justin Herbert was that his legs would help him out in this offense, right? He's a guy who's kind of an underrated athlete. He hasn't ran a whole lot so far in his NFL career. It was a thing he did a little bit of back in college, but with Greg Roman, now as the offensive coordinator, coming from Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. Of course, before that, he was with Kaepernick back in San Francisco, and Tyrod Taylor in Buffalo. It was a thing that we thought maybe we could see a little bit more of that being in Herbert's game for the first time, but I really don't think it's going to be the case now. And I'm very concerned that it's just going to be a bad, messy year. I mentioned during my bust video I did last week, and he's pretty much solidified himself onto my do not draft list at this point. I have him right now in front of Geno Smith and Aaron Rodgers, but I could easily see that change with just a couple of good reports for those guys. Geno also a little bit banged up, but certainly he's not nearly as serious as Herbert's. Aaron Rodgers, you know, I'm a little bit nervous because we just aren't going to get to see it all in the preseason. But I do have him behind now Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson and Will Levis and Matthew Stafford. He's kind of in that backup tier in a 1 QB league. I'm not drafting any of these guys, but in a 2 QB league or a super flex league, that'll be my QB2 that I'll play in that second slot. But in a 1 QB league, unfortunately, I just don't think I'm even going to mess with Justin Herbert this year, which is crazy. Let's get back to another riser here, and that is Rashee Rice, the wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. He was really an exciting player last year, really came on the second half of the season, emerged Mahomes' favorite target in the second half, and I think a lot of us were very excited about the breakout potential for Rashee Rice. And then all the things happened in the offseason with, you know, the drag racing and everything that kind of went into that. There was a story about, you know, a photographer at a club and things happening there. It wasn't very good, and it kind of looked like, oh gosh, we're going to be heading towards a suspension. Well, it turns out his court case isn't until December. There's been no news coming out about this whole situation, and we are getting closer and closer to the start of the season. At this point, I think it's fair to wonder if it won't even happen this season, and we could end up in a situation similar to Alvin Kamara, where it actually took a full season going by before there was any suspensions or punishments handed down from the NFL. So he has moved up to my wide receiver 35, kind of in that flex range. I do think it could be a discount, though. I really think that if you had the cojones to be the guy that takes Rashee Rice, he could perform better than that ranking, but you have to be aware of the fact that it could just be gone out of nowhere at any moment. NFL players, I already kind of always ballpark like injury risk is 10% for everybody. Rashee Rice, though, his chances of missing games have to be a little bit elevated because of a potential suspension. Another faller I want to mention for sure is DeAndre Hopkins. Unfortunately, he suffered an injury as well. He's going to miss the remainder of the preseason. He's going to miss the rest of training camp. He might even miss the start of the season, and as an older wide receiver, I am incredibly concerned about this as well. DeAndre Hopkins, unfortunately, now will be a player who I completely avoid this fall as we draft, and it's not good. It hurts Will Levis a little bit too. I didn't move him down. I kind of hope for the Ridley factor to really help him out and still kind of maintain his potential as a sleeper for me. But for DeAndre Hopkins, yeah, man, you're at that age where you have a preseason injury. I'm just going to be totally out. Hopefully it works out great and I pay for it, but man, I'm not doing it. Isaiah Likely of the Baltimore Ravens, TJ Hockenson of the Minnesota Vikings. Hockenson coming back from the ACL tear and Likely sitting behind Mark Andrews. Both are kind of in similar situations where maybe they have to bide their time, but maybe their time will come sooner than we all think. For Likely, let's start with him first here. So reports have come out that he could actually kind of function as the team's number 2 receiver in this offense. That, as a Baltimore Ravens fan, not the most exciting thing in the world for me to hear. I don't love that. That means that Zay Flowers may not be coming through, or the Rashad Bateman hype was nothing but smoke and noise. But for Isaiah Likely, what this could mean is opportunity, and it doesn't take a whole heck of a lot for him to be able to kind of become a relevant tight end. It takes less for him than it would for Bateman to matter a wide receiver. So there is some sleeper potential there for Isaiah Likely if he can get off to a little bit of a start here. TJ Hockenson, I've just kind of been operating with the assumption he would start the season on a PUP list, miss 6 weeks, and then kind of work his way back from there. That doesn't seem to be the case. They're not ruling him out for week 1 yet. So if there's a chance Hockenson comes back sooner, he could be a big part of this offense. If he comes in with McCarthy, I think there could be some goodness there to be had for TJ Hockenson at a bit of a discount still. This one's going to be a quick one because I only moved down 1 spot, but it's number 1 spot overall for me, and that's CeeDee Lamb. Because of this ongoing holdout situation, we are deep enough into the preseason and training camp so far that I think I'm ready to move him down 1 spot and put Tyreek Hill as my number 1 wide receiver. The final piece of injury news that we're going to touch on here, and that's Jonathon Brooks, the running back for the Carolina Panthers. He will miss the rest of training camp and the preseason, and they do not expect him to be ready to go until weeks 3 or 4. That kind of puts a little bit of damper on it for me. I was hoping he would at least be active for those games, and if you kind of do it as like a 4-week ramp-up period, there's like weeks 1 through 4 for him ramping up, and then week 5 on he takes off. Now I think we're looking at like a week 3-4 return, weeks 4 through 7 ramp up, and then week 8 we take off. So that's going to bump him down a little bit in my rankings. I do still have my running back 34 though, and can still be a second half league winner for you. So those are the updates to my rankings. Guys, you can find all of the updates on the community tab. There are more minor moves I made as well. These are just kind of some of the major ones. I did move Puka Nacua down 1 spot as well, as his injury news came out as well. He's week to week, but I still like Puka so much, I could not move him down anymore. Are you guys concerned about Puka Nacua and Justin Herbert and these other injured guys? Let me know in the comments down below, and be sure to check out more and more videos I've got on the channel right here to get you all set for your draft.